the tone for your audience. So our audience is different to Leeds. Leeds is their fans are and Conor McGregor retweeted it. So the engagement just went up massively. My phone was pinging. Yeah, phone was pinging non-stop, and that got over like 1.5 million impressions.
Yeah, so I guess the first question, mate, is obviously you are social media, I think it's social media manager at York City. What entails being a social media manager exactly?
Yeah, I mean that's sort of like part of my job. My actual title is like media officer, so I'm technically I'm the only media actual staff at York City. You get that a lot of the lower clubs, so you've got to do a bit of everything. So obviously at bigger clubs, say your Leeds, your Premier League sides, you'd have like a social media manager. But I guess for me, what I do on a day-to-day basis is anywhere from interviews with players, the gaffer. I work really closely with media relations, so obviously BBC Radio York, Yorkshire Post, people like that, trying to get us in those sort of programmes. And other than that, a big role and something I think I'm quite good at is social media, which is we do heavily at York because before I came in we didn't really have a presence, so they wanted someone younger in. So I'm 23 and I sort of know the social media landscape. I've grown up with it, so it's been easy for me to come in and sort of revamp the social media and make it much more fun, interactive, more for the fans, if you know what I mean, more fan engagement, because essentially that's what you want at a football team. You don't want to take yourself too seriously. You don't want just statements going out every other day. That's boring, and it's not me. I like to have a laugh, so I sort of tailor it towards my personality as well, I guess.
So is it, obviously with starting in the game of media at a football club, it's a big thing with my club, Leeds United, obviously, because we've got Craig Wilson, who I know you've had on the Press Conference podcast, and I'm sure you've seen a lot of what Craig does, and there's a really good fan interaction with him. He's very humorous. Do you think you've got to have that side of your personality with regards to taking on a media manager role at a football club?
Yeah, definitely. It's one of the main things about social media. No one's gonna listen to a social media channel, and no one's going to engage with it, especially when you're a team like York. We have a Twitter following of 52,000 or something. It's easier if you're a Premier League team, you've got that following, but if you don't have the following, you have to find new ways of actually doing stuff. And for us, and like Leeds, it's humour, and humour does really well on social media, as I'm sure you know from looking at Leeds' channels. It's Craig does a brilliant job, and he's someone I take a lot of inspiration from with that. And we have this saying in the office, me and the commercial manager, we say personality, not press releases, because that's basically what we're trying to achieve. And yeah, so I'd say so, definitely. It's all about giving a personality to your brand, essentially, and that's what will give you the upper hand.
And when you first started as in the social media of York, were you ever sort of nervous to put certain posts out, like how it will be received?
Yeah, definitely, because our fans, we've got a lot of like an older fan base, because our sort of heyday was maybe 1970s, I'd say. So a lot of our fans are older fans, and so they might not be on social media, but still. And in the past, it's been very much, like I said, just press releases, and that's what people were used to. But the way the media landscape's changing and the way social media is changing is, people want to see a bit more fun on the accounts, give a bit more personality. So yeah, like I tested the water a few times, obviously, just using just some memes or whatever, and just seeing how people reacted to that. And then you get those posts just like, oh, who's the new admin and stuff like that. And that's good, because then you can see people are actually seeing a change, which is what I wanted. And a lot of people at York know me now, and they know what the account's about. They know how we're going to communicate with the fans, and it's about finding your voice as well. You've got to find the tone for your audience. So our audience is different to Leeds. Leeds is their fans are absolutely mental. They love a bit of like savagery. Do you know what I mean? But for us, we've got a player like Steve McNulty. I don't know if you know him. He's a big centre back. He used to play for Tranmere, and I put a post up which was Virgil van Dijk has a photo of Steve McNulty on his bedroom wall, and that got like the most likes we've ever had and stuff like that. And there was another one which one of our players, Macaulay Langstaff, we were away at a game, and I normally try and do some candid shots of the players, just because people want to see like the background and what's going on. And Macaulay just comes up to the camera and sort of does a McGregor walk past it, and I was like typical Macaulay. So I put it on, and I just put I tagged Conor McGregor and said Conor McGregor or Macaulay Langstaff, and Conor McGregor retweeted it. So the engagements just went up massively. My phone was pinging. Yeah, phone was pinging non-stop, and that got over like 1.5 million impressions, which absolutely crazy. Conor McGregor is one of the the biggest athlete on the world. So
Dan, with that, mate, obviously when you put a post like that out and it's retweeted by Conor McGregor, what is sort of Macaulay's reaction to you? Do you have sort of an interaction after that's happened? Like, because he must owe a lot to you after you've done something like that.
Yeah, I think I was relatively new when that came in as well, so not a lot of the lads like sort of knew me. I was just there with the camera, just doing stuff, interviews here and there. They probably thought I was an intern or something, but I think they had a lot more sort of respect for me after that. Not respect, but like they knew me after that, so it was nice. And they come up to me. I was just like, oh, what's he going to put today and stuff like that. And other clubs better watch out. And it's good to have that relationship with the players where they feel comfortable being on camera and doing that stuff, because then ultimately I get the good content, and they come to me for content most of the time now, and they're just like, oh Dan, take a video of me hitting crossbar or something like that, and that's what you want really. So yeah, it gave me a lot more clout within the group, I'd say.
So what made you, obviously you were fresh out of university, and I did on your Twitter, I think it was your Twitter, Dan, it was you'd put like a post about a year ago and you were essentially saying I'm struggling to get into media. Now I'm doing a master's in broadcast journalism right now. And obviously looking into the future, you think, wow, what's going to happen next? Obviously with the pandemic right now, what was in your mind at that period of time when you were sort of struggling for jobs, and then randomly out the blue, York City give you a ring to be, the manager essentially of the social media team?
Yeah, it was crazy. Like I put that post up, someone actually sent me it who I know, and they said, oh, just to let you know, this came off my time hop. I don't know why it was on his time hop, but he said, oh, this was a year ago. And I remember posting out at the time because I was, like you said, I was just about to graduate, I think, and I'd been applying for these jobs, and all through uni, I was literally, grafting my ass off to do extra work. I was going above and beyond in everything I did. And I was doing all of this because I thought, oh, I'm going to be the one who gets the job at a football club, because that's all I ever wanted. And, I applied for a few clubs. I think there was clubs like Accrington, Bristol Rovers, West Ham. I just didn't hear back from anyone. And I was like, I'm not even getting a sniff here. No one's even taken notice of me, which is really disheartening. I was just like, I've put in all this work. I couldn't have done more, and people still aren't taking notice. And I was like, wow, like this is rubbish. But looking back on it now, you just need to be really persistent with it, because you've got to think how many people want a job in football, especially at a club. Literally probably everyone in my class wanted a job at a football club, and think how many journalism courses there are, media courses, and how many people are graduating that year. It's not how much work you put in. It's a contacts game as well. So the reason I got the job at York is I did a bit of internship with BT Sport, where I filmed the York City games, because I'm from York, and I did that in my first year when I was 19, and the club secretary remembered me. So they put a job up for a commercial manager, which, funnily enough, my colleague Chris now holds. So he's probably found this out for the first time. I did apply for his job, but I knew I was never going to get it. But I just wanted my name in there just to say, like, hey, like, do you remember me? I'm now graduating. I want a job, just to get my CV in their hands. And the sporting director emailed me back and just said, yeah, I don't think the job's for you, which was the first rejection letter I ever had. No other clubs or anything had given me a letter just to say, yeah, we're not going to interview or whatever. But York did, and they said, and he basically said, just contact me again in the summer because there might be a position. So I was like, all right, that's interesting. So after all this was going on, I was applying at other clubs. I was like, tell you what, I'll bang York City another email just to see if there is a role available, because I knew they had someone in at the moment. So I thought, oh, there's no really way that's going to work out. But they wanted someone like part-time to come in and do like the social media side. Because as I said before, they had no social media presence. They were, practically just really boring online. So no one, disengaged with the fans. Had a really bad relationship between the fans and the club. So they wanted someone to come in to tie that together. So I initially came in part-time. I sort of had an initial chat. I came in, had a chat. I was like, yeah, can you do part-time? I was like, yep, suits me, because I also got offered a job at the County FA in Northumberland. So I was working part-time there and part-time at York for a month. And that sort of brought a full-time position. And obviously I was travelling up to Newcastle 3 times a week, which wasn't ideal. But as soon as I joined, wasn't because I joined, but the media guy who was in my job before actually handed in his resignation. He was I think he wanted to go into a different job or whatever. So it just so happened that there was a full-time role. So obviously me coming in part-time, I was there and ready to take over the job. So I had an interview for it. They said, he's leaving. Do you want to be interviewed? So I was like, yeah, of course I do. And they interviewed me and another lad and the other guy had worked in a club before. So I thought, I knew who he was. I was just like, I'm not going to get the job off him. Like he's obviously the top candidate, and I was just I'd probably stay part-time probably. But I think they were really impressed at the interview. I think I'm quite a good speaker. I don't know. I think that's one of my strong points. If I'm doing an interview, I come across very enthusiastic, I think, and that's what you have to be like. And I came across like I knew the club really well, because I did. And because obviously I've grown up in York, I knew the club, and I came with so much stuff. That stuff I was saying before, I'd done so much at uni. I brought all of that with me, like physical stuff. And I was like, this is what I do. This is what the club's about. This is where it needs to go. And I can help you do this. And, I think they made the right decision in the end, I hope.
So what sort of, obviously you had your physical evidence there, Dan, your hard evidence. So at university, what do you think it was? Obviously you talk about your enthusiasm, but what other aspects did you bring that to that interview and, slap on the table and say, look, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this?
Yeah, it was, I sort of, like, as I said before, I knew the club secretary as well, because I think she was the only one who was there before. So I sort of met her initially when I walked in the building. I think she probably put in a word for me and said, yeah, like Dan's a nice lad, sort of thing. And, I think that sort of helped a bit as well. But, I think it all just does boil down to being enthusiastic and having a good portfolio and contacts as well. Those 3 things together, then you can't go wrong, if you know what I mean. That's literally how you're going to get the jobs, especially in football media where it's so competitive. You've got to have all them 3 things to actually stand out against others.
Yeah, definitely. And you were talking earlier about your, having that relationship with the players. When that first came around, were you quite sort of nervous at maybe like filming the players and taking snapshots?
Yeah, definitely. And I was sort of nervous because I did have a season ticket at York one year. It was the year they were in League Two, and some of the players were still there. So obviously I sort of knew them, and they were sort of like the professional footballers, you know what I mean? And I'd done stuff before with footballers, but only like semi-pro footballers and not like proper they're not superstars, but you know what I mean. They're professional athletes, so I was a bit nervous to start off with, maybe just for a few days, and nervous to ask for interviews, sort of thing. But they're so they're generally such a good group. They're so nice, and after obviously putting all this content out, they've seen what I'd done. It wasn't like the old media output where it was, I think the players were a bit hesitant to do stuff because it was badly received. Like everything now seems to be really well received, especially with the players. So it shines them in a good light. So I'm basically helping them, with their footballing careers in some respects. If they score a good goal in training, or I put together like goals of the week or stuff like that, it's promoting them as well. So they love it. Like footballers love attention, obviously. So it gives you a lot of, as I said before, like clout in the group, I guess. I've sort of got a lot of power over, I can make them look stupid, I can make them look amazing. So I think there was one story where Jordan Burrow, who's our striker, he's been top scorer the past few years. He got nutmegged in training, and I was just there recording it, and I was just like, "Oh, Jordan, mate, that's going on Twitter, that pal." And I put it on Twitter, and he was sort of jokingly in a mood with me for a few days afterwards. But I mean, that's it. It's just having a laugh, not taking yourself too seriously, and it's just be yourself, really. Like I said, like the account's basically me. Do you know what I mean? Everyone thinks it's a brand, but it's just one person. It could be me by my personal Twitter, just having a laugh. That's basically what it's like in the social media aspects of the job. Anyway, I'm very professional in other areas.
Do you think, because we've seen the sort of increase of football social media accounts going at each other a little bit, do you think obviously it is funny and from a person, because you sort of see the accounts like as the football club and no one else is behind it, York City, it is York City, there's no one else behind that. How do you think that's gone, Dan? Because a lot of fragments of the media will turn around and say it's not really a good way to go, because you see a lot of clubs sort of griping at each other nowadays. Have you sort of experienced anything similar to that?
Yeah, I'm all for it. I like brands to show a bit of personality. As I said before, I don't like just press releases, and that's not human. Do you know what I mean? It's PR yourself, if you know what I mean. Just be natural and be yourself. And yeah, I have an experience with that. It's so when everyone was doing those Connect 4 games on Twitter, I think it was Hull City who started it off. As a football club, you want to sort of jump on these trends and do these things to sort of stay relevant in the game, especially when it's locked down, no one's doing out. So I've seen Hull City put these Connect 4 things out, and it went viral, obviously. So I was just like, I'll tell you what, like, I want a bit of that. And I think it was Havant and Waterlooville. They're in like the South Division, I think. They tweeted someone in the league above them, like their rival or something, saying, "Oh, do you want a game of Connect 4?" And they just replied, "No, that's it." Just absolutely mugged them off. And they got, it was like 35,000 retweets or whatever.
For some reason in my head that sticks out as Luton, but their leagues are, I don't know, like I think I can remember that one.
Yeah, this is what I'm getting onto. So I did it, I went and did it to Luton, because I thought there's two ways this can go. They'll actually play us at a game and we'll get the sort of clout from that. They're a League One Championship side, I can't remember. But they're like way higher divisions than us. So even if they interact with me, then, they've taken the bait, do you know what I mean? So I put out to Luton, I was like, right then, you fancy a game? And then I put the Connect 4 thing out, and they replied exactly the same as Eastleigh and just put like, "Nah, you're all right." I was just like, tell you what, you've mugged us off there, but it was good because it got us on all like match of the day, and Paddy Power reported on it and stuff, and it's just like, well, yeah, we did get mugged off. It was a game of Connect 4. It's not like we lost 4-0 in the actual game. And it got York City's name back out there into the mainstream media rather than just, local media, which isn't bad. But, your ultimate aim is to get you... It's not bad press, is what I'm trying to say. We lost a game of Connect 4. So it wasn't that bad. And, we got a few more followers and stuff and a lot of more interaction. And, we had a rivalry with Luton back in the day, so that's why I did it. And, it was all good from my my point of view, you know.
Is it, obviously you were talking about Hull Crit and that sort of Connect 4 viral trend. Is it really difficult, and I presume it is, to sort of think of something like that is going to trend and is going to get other football clubs involved?
Yeah, I think, like I said before, it's about clubs just doing things like out of the box and showing your personality rather than just putting out the same old rubbish. Like, people respond to, you know, stuff which happens in the moment, like the Macaulay Langstaff thing with Conor McGregor, and, you know, humour, like the thing with Steve McNulty I said earlier. You know, people respond to that, and ultimately Hull's was really good because it was an interactive thing, so two teams could interact and there was no football going on. So it was weird because who plays football clubs Connect Four, do you know what I mean? So, and it was with Bayer Leverkusen of all people, I think. So it was just like, well, when would Hull play Bayer Leverkusen? So I interviewed the guy for it, Ben, actually, and, you know, he's a proper smart guy. Like, he thinks exactly the same as me, where it's like, you need to find something to keep the fans engaged, and something out of the ordinary like he did absolutely did that, and, you know, drew attention to Hull City. You know, that was everywhere, if you know what I mean, and that's what you want, essentially. So it's just finding those things to actually engage football fans as a whole, not just your own club, I think.
How would you go about sort of, you know, is that just a creative process that you go through in your mind, or do you sort of bounce it off a few people?
I think, for me, the more people you bounce it off, the less, you know, social media needs to be instant a lot of the time, because that's essentially what it is. You know, you're either reporting what's happening, or, like, think of a good idea and you do it, if you know what I mean. If you bounce off too many people, they'll be like, oh, but this. And it's like, well, if you think it's a good idea, if it goes well, then brilliant. If it doesn't go well, then you learn from it. So that's my sort of thinking, like, creative process on it. You know, I'm always just going to do it. If it's something more serious, like the stuff happened at the moment, coronavirus, stuff like that, then obviously you have to get things signed off, like press releases and stuff like that. I'm not working at the moment, but obviously earlier in the season when we've had things happen, serious things, then those need to be signed off. But obviously when you're having a bit of fun with stuff, there's no point going, can I post this out? Can I post this out? Like, just post it. Like, don't even, if it's your gut feeling to post it out. But obviously you learn from the mistakes you made before, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously, you know, you've gone through a lot of, like, good things with York and the media management and stuff like that. So in this lockdown period, you had a little bit of a productive spurt with starting the press conference podcast. Obviously, I've started a podcast myself in this lockdown, so I know my reasons for starting it. But I mean, it's a cracking podcast, Dan. Really good to get the sort of acknowledgement and understanding of people in the media sphere. So what made you start it with everything you've got going on? Because let's not forget, York City's media team, it doesn't just stop right now. So how have you managed to manage what you're doing right now?
Yeah, so essentially, I've had this idea to do this podcast for years. I had the idea at uni, but as a student, you're sort of like, I don't really want to go through with it because no one's going to take me serious because I'm a student. That's how I felt at the time. I was a second year student. You know, now I'm sort of in a job and a bit older, I think, and people take me more serious. So I had the idea for ages, and it was like, I should have jumped on it earlier, because podcasts I think I read something the other day, it was just like, for every podcast there's, you know, 50 YouTube channels and like 500 blogs. So it's really sort of niche and in its early stages of where sort of YouTube was a few years ago, I think. And, you know, if you don't jump on it now, and it's good to see you are as well, I think you understand that if you don't jump on it now, then you're missing out massively, because the barrier to entry is going to be so much higher. Like, say you want to start a YouTube channel now, you're going to have to work 10 times as hard. You're going to have to have so much better production quality. But if you start a podcast now, all you need to do is, you know, we're talking over Skype at the moment, and, you know, I've got my earphones in. You don't need a microphone or whatever, you know. So it's essentially like that. And the lockdown period has been really good for me, because like a lot of people, I got put on furlough. So for me, that meant I was told you're not allowed to touch any of the social media accounts, York social media accounts, which is why it's been very quiet.
Okay.
And you're not allowed to be doing any work whatsoever. So I was just like, right, that's frustrating because, you know, when you're in a job like that, that's essentially your life. So that's my life, just, you know, I'll just be sat on the sofa every day. So, I mean, I was thinking, I was like, I'm either going to sit and play COD every day, which I still do play a bit of COD, obviously. Not many Warzone wins, but anyway. And I thought to myself, you need to do something productive with this time. And if there's one time you're going to start this podcast, it's now. Because you've got all this time, everyone has slowed down, no one's doing anything. You need to strike while the iron's hot, and you need to do it. If you don't do it now, you're never going to do it. So I just bit the bullet, and I was like, I'm going to contact everyone I know within sort of social media, football media. So Craig was obviously one of them, and he was the first one I had on, and you know, it went really well. And I was like, why did I not start this before? Because, you know, it's gotten so popular now within our sort of niche group of people, like football media. It's really sort of given me more of a personal brand as well. So people sort of know who I am, which is good in terms of networking. And to build on that with networking, like, I find it very awkward, you know, networking with someone like at a networking event. I don't know if you've ever been to like a networking event, but you're essentially there in a room with people who you don't know, and you just like walk up to people like how are you doing? Like, I don't know, I just find it very awkward and very forced. Whereas in a podcast, you're speaking to someone one-on-one, you know, you've got a topic you want to speak about, you're learning as well. So for me, a big thing about my podcast is I do it to learn myself. Like, selfishly, I do it to learn, but in turn, it helps other people learn because I put it out there for everyone. So that's essentially what I wanted to happen. And, you know, I've been really busy with that because I really believe in it. And, you know, there wasn't a community for us, if you know what I mean. And, you know, I've just recently created a Facebook group as well, and a big community around football media. And that's gone down brilliantly. It's 700 members in 24 hours or something like that. So it's absolutely mental. And, you know, there's this really big community of football media, even sports media people. And, you know, as I said, in terms of networking, in terms of people learning, you know, I like helping people. Anytime a student comes to me, I want to help them because I know what it was like for me in that position. So, you know, essentially it's learning for me and it's learning for everyone else. And this was the time to start it, if you know what I mean. Perfect opportunity. And, you know, if anyone's there thinking at the moment, like, oh, I'm doing nothing with my time, you know, there's a lot of negative things going on in the world at the moment, and I've stayed away from a lot of it. On Twitter, I've muted the words like Boris Johnson.
That's a good idea.
The Labour leader as well, Keir, I can't remember his name. Yeah. Coronavirus, stuff like that. I've muted all that stuff so it doesn't come up on my timeline, because your timeline is essentially your library of information you see from the media. So I don't want to see so many people have died. I don't want news flashes on my phone from BBC coming up saying, you know, another so many people have died, because that was happening every day in lockdown. And, you know, it just gets you down and depressed, and, you know, you can't be productive and you can't do things when you're like that. And, you know, I'm a very positive person, and, you know, obviously I care about what's happening greatly. Like, don't get me wrong, but for me, I want to shut myself off from that and concentrate on something else. So this was essentially it. And, you know, I found lockdown really, really productive because of that.
And do you think, with regards to, because obviously you've got a YouTube channel, I'll stick it in the description below as well, mate, but because you've got, you know, your little clips and stuff like that, which, you know, I'll do a podcast and then put the clips on YouTube as well, and that's an effort in itself, isn't it, doing all the thumbnails and, you know, all that anyway. But do you think that you will carry on doing this sort of thing even when you've got access to maybe, let's say, a studio where you can meet someone face to face? Because I think I don't know if you think there is, but I think there's a little bit of a niche with this, and maybe keeping it up, that might be a positive thing.
Yeah, I think so. I think I'd like to go and visit people and do that. Obviously, I've got a full-time job, so I probably can't do that as much. I think just speaking online as we are now, that works absolutely fine. The audio's fine. I don't have to, worry about traveling anywhere. I think, technology at the moment, like Zoom's massive, like the Zoom app at the moment, that everyone does it for meetings. I use it for recording my podcast. You can literally click record on Zoom and it records it for you. And it's so much easier than going to visit people. But obviously, if you go and visit someone, it makes it a bit more personal. And, maybe I might start doing that. But essentially, I do have a full-time job, and that's obviously what I concentrate on. But this would just be my sort of side hustle. I don't earn any money from it. I don't plan to earn any money from it. But for me, it's like networking and doing those things outside of work, which will get me to the next step.
Definitely, yeah. And obviously, reverting back to York, what are the sort of backroom staff at York like? Are they supportive? Have they been excellent with you?
Yeah, they've been really good. They're really welcoming. When I came in, it's, as with anyone, we're a very small knit group, so there's only probably 4 of us in the actual office at one time. And then you have your academy staff, your playing staff, who are elsewhere at the training ground. So I'm based at the stadium. And, everyone's really supportive. And, I work with Chris Pegg, who's the commercial manager. And, he's a couple of years older than me. And he's, we get on really well, which helps as well because, commercial and media go hand in hand. So just doing that. And, me and Chris like to get out there, interact with fans. We'll go out into the city centre and, network with like the local businesses and stuff like that and meet them. And, everyone's really friendly, and the football club's such a massive thing in the city. It's great to be a part of, if you know what I mean. It gives you a lot of pride working for them, I'd say. Yeah.
So obviously you've said before, carry on being persistent, but have you got sort of any other additional tips for people maybe who are watching this who maybe want to be in the position that you're in?
Yeah, I put a tweet out a couple of weeks ago actually on this. It was, just stop caring what people think. It's a big thing for me, especially when I was younger. Like I'd probably say insecure. Like I'd do something, I'd want to do something, but I'd be like, oh, what's he going to think? What's she going to think? And, what are they going to say? Who's going to comment what? And it's like, when you're younger, that stuff matters so much, but it's like now I'm just like, it's paying dividends now because, I'm doing something which is out the ordinary, which, don't get me wrong, people don't like people who do stuff out of the ordinary. Everyone wants people to stay in their box and do things. And, in yourself with the podcast, it's great that you're doing it because it's something different. And, that's what's going to get you further because you're doing something different. And that other person who's, maybe being negative or, said this about you or whatever, then, they're doing that from a position of, they don't like what they're doing or they're negative themselves. So I just sort of ignore it if I do get it. I don't get it at all anymore, but I mean, I ignore sort of negativity if I do get it. And, I focus on the positive stuff. I focus on, the numbers it's doing and stuff like that and how many people are saying positive stuff about it because, that's what truly matters. And, if I give advice to anyone, at uni in the industry is, be positive in everything you do. Be kind to people all the time. Always be kind because you never know, who's going to open that next door for you or, who could even close that door if you're not nice to someone. So be kind as well and, just stay persistent, as I said before, do stuff, do weird stuff, I'd say, because that's what's going to get you further.
Yeah, because, I've experienced it as well, mate. Obviously, we were talking earlier about me being part of sort of a fan channel, and obviously that is something that breeds opinion. But some of the, I'm sure a lot of people have experienced it in whatever they do as well. But some of the negativity that spirals from that, it is crazy, and I think it takes a certain type of person to be able to sort of, just completely ignore that. I mean, with regards to York and stuff like that, I presume you have you ever had sort of any negative tweets or something back to what you're saying? And And is that sort of easy to overcome, or does it get to you a little bit as well, or did it get to you?
Yeah, I think, it's no secret that, in the past and, even sort of now, there's a bit of a divide between the fans and the club. So obviously me coming in, that's my sort of job to overturn and try and bridge that gap a little bit, even though it's very, very hard because, there's a lot of disagreements. So some things which I have to put out, like statements or whatever, board statements or, anything, if we've lost a game or something, I used to take it very much like, if someone posted a bad comment or, even if we'd won a game and someone would post, oh, we were lucky to win that, or, so-and-so was rubbish today, I don't know how we scored. And I was, sometimes want to reply back to them and being like, we've won the game. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's all that matters. But I guess you've got to think social media is, anyone can say anything. People love hiding behind their keyboards and, posting negative comments just to get a reaction sometimes. And, as I said before, negativity springs from someone who's negative themselves. So, at York, that's an environment, even the gaffer, Steve Watson, he tried to create a really positive environment. And, we even had a sports psychologist come in. We were on a bit of like a weird losing run. We started the season, I think we were undefeated for 20-something games. So we were the longest running, other than Liverpool, I think, English team who were unbeaten in all top 6 divisions, I think, or something like that. And we had this sports psychologist come in because, we lost a few games and the lads were sort of feeling the pressure from the crowd and stuff. And, and the gaffer invited me into that as well, which was nice because it made me feel part of the team as well. So, I was the only other staff member in there. There was no one else, other office staff was in there. He just said, oh, Dan, do you want to come in? Because I think he sees me as, part of the communication with the fans as well. So it was a good insight for me. And the psychologist was just saying about what I've been speaking about, like positivity and, shut out the noise and, hold your teammates accountable. And, it was really interesting. I definitely learned a lot from him. As we've been speaking, a lot of the things I've said are actually from that meeting. Like I've learned so much from that. So, got to appreciate Steve Watson for letting me do that, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It sounds pretty key in what you've been saying, mate. And is it? Do you feel, obviously York have been on a downward spiral really for a fair few years? I was part of the academy. As I've said, in another podcast, when I got a YTS when I was 16, so they've got they've got an affinity with me. Definitely York. They're definitely sort of a bit of a second team. But do you think you're sort of a part now of maybe a wider project? The positivity, the league positions clearly getting better and better because York were just on a horrendous sort of trajectory for years. Is that, part of the social media team, you getting back up there? Do you feel you're part of a wider positive project right now?
Yeah, but the whole point of me joining York was, even at the interview, he asked me a question that stuck with me. He was like, what do you want to do essentially? Where do you want to go with this? Because I was just graduating. I was just like, well, I want to be the media manager for a Premier League team. And then he was just like, Dave Penny was like, I like that because, we want people who are hungry and want to do better. And, if you get that call in 2 years' time, I'll shake your hand and say thank you for the work you've done and stuff because, we want people to progress and do things. And, the club is in a really progressive state at the moment because obviously we've got the new stadium coming. So that was a huge part of me joining the club. Why I wanted to join the club as well. It's, the only way is up essentially. And, I've been lucky this season with, we're top of the league. I'm hoping we do get promotion. I'm hoping the FA do promote us, whatever that outcome is. And, with the same, as I said, the only way is up. And, I even had a chat with the chairman and I said, what are your aspirations? Because I was interested because I want to be along for the ride and I want to be a part of this. And he said, I think York are a top half League One club and we have the finances to do that. We have the infrastructure to do that. And you look at teams like Bournemouth, who are Premier League. It's just like they were in my head. They're still in League Two. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're like a League Two side, but I mean York should be much higher than they are. And I'm really privileged to be a part of this era. And I'm proud because obviously I'm from York, and it's a great position to hold, really.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, Dan, thank you for joining us, mate. It's been a real eye opener, especially for me, and I'm sure for a lot of the listeners who want to get into media. And how can people find you? And what do they do?
Yeah, no worries at all, pal. My probably best way to find me is on Twitter or LinkedIn. Obviously, just search Dan Simmonite. But it's just at Dan_Simmonite for my Twitter. And obviously, my DMs are open. Drop me a DM if you want any advice or talk anything through. So always here to help. So yeah.
But I really appreciate your time, Dan. And I'll speak to you soon, mate.
Yeah, no worries. Absolutely.
See you in a bit, Dan.
Cheers, mate. See you.